All right, guys, we're going to do another little video on diving more into the adding and subtracting with complex numbers. So you're going to notice some of the examples in here are going to be very similar to what we did last video. And then I added just a couple little more extra examples that we can really be good at these before we move on to the multiplying piece. Okay, so up here at the beginning are just some more steps to help you with these, but I think you guys did such a good job with it last time, it shouldn't be too hard. So in the first two examples, you're going to notice that these are what we did last time. So combine your like terms. So I got 8 plus 3. That gets me 11. And then I combine my complex numbers. So 6 plus 2 gets me 8i. Okay? So that one's pretty easy. Same thing with this one. You just got to be careful with the subtracting. 3 minus 5 gets me a negative 2. And then if I said take a positive 2i and I'm subtracting a negative 2i, so I'm really adding, so 2 plus 2, that gets me a positive 4i. Okay? Other times you can think of it as you're distributing a negative 1 in the front, so that's what's going to change to this to a positive 2, and that's where you get the positive 4i from. All right, so in examples 3 and 4, so these are going to be kind of the new ones, compared to what we did last class, okay? So it's kind of, we're going to combine the stuff from the first video. So the square root of a negative 81, if you remember from video 1, my answer would be 9i. The square root of 81 is 9, and because it's negative, I put an I there. Now for this one, I'm going to bring down my minus 3, and I'm going to simplify my radical here. So the square root of 100, I know is 10, and because it's negative, I put an I there. So I can go ahead and simplify this. So I have 9i minus, negative 3 times 10 is a negative 30i. So my final answer is negative 21i. So 9 minus 30 gives me negative 21. Okay, so if you want, pause the video and see if you can do number 4 on your own. All right, so I'm going to bring down the negative 5. So negative 72. I can break that up into 2 perfect squares. So negative 36 and 2. So I know this one here, that's the tricky one. So negative 5 times 6i, because it's negative, radical 2. So then this part becomes negative 30i, radical 2. Now let's work on the other part. So plus 2, and then the square root of negative 32. I can split that up into negative 16 and 2. Which means I can simplify this to 4i, radical 2. 2 times 4 gets me 8i, radical 2. Now these are like terms because my radicals are the same. So negative 30 plus 8 is going to get me a negative 22i. Then you carry over your radical 2. This one's a bit of a tricky one, okay? Let's do some more examples. This one's easy peasy. The square root of negative 49 gets me 7i, okay? All right, so this one here, I have a negative 1 in the front, so that's this part. And then I'm going to simplify the square root of negative 100, so that would be 10i plus radical negative 36 simplifies to 6i. The square root of 36 is 6. Because it's negative, you put an I. So my final answer is going to be negative 10i plus 6i. So my final answer would be negative 4i. Okay? So if you need to, pause the video and do these 2 examples on your own. And then play it again, see if you get the answers correct. All right, square root of 49, negative 49 becomes 7i minus 2 times square root of negative 4 gets me 2i. So I have 7i minus 4i. So my final answer is 3i. So this one here I have, so the square root of negative 2. So I can actually split that up into the square root of negative 1 and the square root of 2. Plus, and I can split up 8 into a negative 4 and 2. So this becomes 3. Now the square root of negative 1, do you remember from video 1, is just I, radical 2, plus, square root of negative 4 is just 2i, radical 2. These are like terms. So 3i plus 2i gets me 5i. And then you just carry over your radical. Any questions? Okay. Got a couple more examples, a little bit harder ones to kind of run through. So if you want, feel free to pause the videos and then try them out on your own on a separate sheet of paper if you have to. Okay. I'm going to run through the answers. So this first one simplifies to 5i minus the square root of 144 I know is 12. And because it's negative, it's an I. So your final answer is negative 7i. Not too bad, right? So this one simplifies. So I got a 4 in the front. The square root of negative 1 is just I. Minus the square root of negative 4 would be 2i. So my final answer would be 2i. Okay. All right, so this one's a little bit more trickier because we don't have perfect squares. Okay. So I'm going to split this one up. So the square root of negative 27, that's not perfect. So I can split that up into a negative 9 and 3. So plus 3, square root of 12, negative 12. So that can be negative 4 and 3. So this simplifies to 5 times. That becomes, oops, sorry guys. That becomes 3i, radical 3, plus 3 times 2i, radical 3. So this gets me 15i, I can multiply those, radical 3, plus 6i, radical 3. And these are like terms. So 15i plus 6i gets me 21i. Bring over your radical. That's your final answer. Okay. All right, so let's piece these all together with these last two. So these are kind of the harder examples. Okay. So if you're kind of a little wishy-washy with these ones, that's okay. These ones are for those of you who think you got it right off the bat. All right. So these kind of look like the examples that we were doing earlier that looked like this. So remember, you just focus on your coefficients. Because we're adding, you only work with your like terms. Okay. So I'm going to first simplify what I can. So I know I have 2 plus the square root of negative 25. That can be simplified to 5i plus 8 minus the square root of negative 9. I know I can simplify to 3i. Now I'm going to combine my like terms. So I get 10. So 2 and 8 combined to 10. 5i minus plus 3 becomes plus 2i. So 10 plus 2i is my final answer. Okay. Any questions? We're going to skip that last one. Don't worry about it. Any questions? Feel free to email me so we can set up a Google Meets.